Easy E, how are we?
Johnny, I tell you what, I'm nervous for the weekend.
You and me both, pal. You and me both. So much so that we're prepping the podcast early, getting it done on a Thursday evening. That's a first for us.
That is very much a first for us, but sets it up nice because I don't know which I'm more afraid of, failing the 75-day challenge because I'm on the beer with all of yous, or being on the beer with all of you guys. I don't know which scares me more, but the only thing is I have you there to kind of give me that, you're not going for your run, you're not going to do a 30-minute yoga session. So there's no hiding from it. This is day 2 of my 4 days that I've allowed myself. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, I might sneak out on a run with you because I've got my own event coming up in 3.5 weeks that I'm nowhere prepped for, and I had a fitness event on Saturday, but afterwards I went out for, and I would say a few beers. Okay, a few beers, and I was handed 2 shots, but it wasn't that much. And I knew that I hadn't got a proper dinner in me or like that. So, like, I did the whole Dior and stuff beforehand because of dehydration and stuff. Like, no, I need to, pace myself out, have a few waters in. But I tell you, after the first point, I forgot all about the water breaks and stuff in between. And the next morning the Sunday was a write-off. And I actually felt a little bit disgusted with myself that, like, look, I know you're supposed to enjoy yourself and everything else that goes with it. But it made me even more petrified this weekend because I didn't think I had that many beers. Now, I had a long day on the Saturday and everything else like that. But, like, I just felt like an entire day wrote off, and then struggling on Monday with 2-day hangovers. And I know we've talked about that before, but I am nervous with the weekend and a few drinks. I am.
Yeah,
and the lack of training on a weekend.
And maybe there's something wrong with us. Like, we're nervous because of the drinking, so why drink? Maybe there's something silly with us, but then it always just takes over when they're all together. That wolf pack mentality.
You have the first point, like, I'll be grand this time. And then even like the Saturday night I got back and I actually had 2 glasses of water, and the glass of water brought upstairs as well. Like, I've done this right. I have hydrated. I'm going to be grand next morning. I am not grand.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But look, it's the hardest bit is going to be getting the training in. Alcohol aside, it's going to have to be early morning. So, there's going to have to be sacrifices, and there's going to have to be prices paid, and that's pretty much what it's going to have to be. But this is the weekend where it can either all fall apart or stick together. It's okay that I'm at home. There was nothing really putting it out with good people training with me. So this weekend we'll see if we can keep the wheels on the wagon first time ever. And on that bombshell, let's crack into this week's episode.
Let's go. It's mad with this week's episode. It's the first time, I don't know, like we've gone this long with having so many guests each week, and then it's back to just us two again. I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually, I never thought I'd get to the point doing a podcast where it's weird just the 2 of us do the podcast. We've had so long, we're having different, just us 2 for ages, and then bringing the guests in, and we're getting people now DMing us, hey, I'd love to come to the podcast, stuff like that, and that's getting pretty cool as well. So hopefully next couple of weeks we start arranging them in. But this week it's not just us 2 talking, because we did get an email about a couple of questions that we're hoping to address on this week's episode of the podcast.
Yeah, it's one of the things about bringing on guests. Every week it has spurred questions and comments, and I suppose it's kind of nice for the 2 of us, without entertaining someone, asking them questions, diving into their lives and finding out what they're doing and how great they are, to actually recap on what's happened, answer a few of them questions. And a lot of questions we probably had ourselves and have had ourselves as well, which is, so it's kind of nice as a kind of a recap previously on the podcast.
It's one way of putting it. All right. I suppose we go straight into questions, Eric, or are you anything to add to it?
Yeah.
Straight in. I would say straight in, but I got to find a tab I got to get these questions open on. Shane sent in a couple.
Right. Well, while you're looking, I want to talk about one thing. Right.
Right. Shoot.
Garmin. Now, are we allowed? Yeah. Garmin fuckery. That's what I'm going to call it. Yeah.
Right.
I should say feckery, but it's not really, because it was the other one. Right. I went for a run and I hadn't had a great day, as in, not like, it was just one of those days where everything was just not going right. We'll talk about the bike in another minute. But I went from a run that night. I was like, right, getting out. I'm going down my run. I was angry coming down. And, left my shoes at the top of the stairs. Everything was going wrong. But anyway, went out on the run. And I was like, 6K, let's get out. Keep it 5 minutes. Try and see a 4:55. So churning along. And the route I take is kind of along the river and underneath a couple of trees. And I'm churning along and what I felt was a 4:20. Look at the Garmin URI and it's saying I'm doing a 6:30.
A 6:30?
I wasn't happy. So then I come around the corner, it settles, goes to 5:10. And I was like, okay, maybe I am going a little bit slow. So I up it and it stays at 5:10. I was like, I click through 2Ks, get through 3K, 4K. I push up the hill and so I was at 5:10. I go up a hill and I don't really speed up. If anything, I kind of slow down. Stays at 5:10. I was like, no. I definitely slowed down to about a 5:30 for the hill. So anyway, I get to about 5K. It goes back to 6:30, whatever a kilometer, and I break. And I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I'm ashamed it happened. It actually got to me. I stopped the watch. I just took a minute. I took a stretch, and then I said, right. I walked for about 300 meters angrily, and I was like, we're just going to run home. I started the watch. I took it nice and easy, cruising home, looked at the watch in the final K, 4:20. I was like, would you stop? No, I was going quicker, but it all of a sudden decided to give me probably what the perceived effort matched the pace I thought I was running at. And that might sound crazy for people, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as fit as I was, but my brain remembers perceived effort versus pace, and I add the percentage from being a little bit heavier and stuff. So I know, this is hard, but it should be a 5:10, and it was right. Anyway, it was one of those days. It doesn't do it often, but I don't know if anyone else has had this problem. But oh my god, it broke me.
I've had to take a couple of seconds and stuff like that. But this happened to you before.
Yeah, it's happened to me. It doesn't happen often, and what I've actually found kind of fixes it is the old classic engineering technique. I just turn my watch off and back on again, and it seems to be okay. But yeah, it just happened on a day where I was like, no, I don't need this today. But yeah, so anyway, got it done. It ended up being a 5:10. As you can imagine, a 5:10 average for the run. I don't know if it's real or not, but yeah, it definitely broke me. Definitely,
and why 450? Why are you setting up for 450?
Mental. I just wanted to see under 5 for a period of time. And that was the aim of the game. I'd done a good interval session, but I did it over 300 meters. There was a guy who lives beside me. I didn't want to kill him. I think I probably did. He wanted to come running, and it was an interval day, so we did 300 meters and playing GAA pitch. And then I had a couple of easy 5Ks that, because I'm doing a 75 type, is I just got to 6K and home, 6K and home, 6 minute kilometer. And then I was like, I want to develop a little bit of that speed back. I want to be moderately uncomfortable without killing myself, and just mentally seeing for something on the watch just for myself. And I was not getting that feedback, and it was not good. Good.
You've built up your mileage. You hit a 15K was it Sunday? You hit a 15K when I was dying. So like you're 5-6 weeks away from Cork somehow. That's only 5-6 weeks away, which means you're 3-4 weeks away from the long run. Is that the plan, or
so the plan,
are you tapering much?
Nah, the plan
in the 3-4 weeks before, so you taper much, or is it kind of like that's going to be built as a long run towards an Ironman? Like what way?
The aim here is an Ironman, so that's a training weekend. So it's a training race. To be honest, it's mileage in the legs. So the thought process, or how I've broken this into bite-sized chunks for myself, is every Sunday will increase by 3 kilometers. So we're going to 18K this Sunday, in Poland. Now look, there's realism there. If that doesn't happen Monday, there's an 18K happening. So as long as that long run is hit mentally, I know, right, there's the 18K, then we move up to the 21. So, and that's what we're going to keep doing up until the point of getting to that 30K, 28 to 30K. Anything over 27, really, that's good enough to know that you're going to stay the course at a certain pace and certain heart rate. So, but that's the aim mentally for me.
I'm going to hold you to that 18K, or at least a long run of Sunday. I tell you why, because you stitched me up this week on the Instagram DMs.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You wanted to tell the listeners what you have promised. You may as well put it out there. So we always say accountability, and I was actually doing some research on some of the questions, and there was a study on Strava, and they're like people who put themselves in groups are like 21% more likely to do. I think it's 21% more likely to do better in a marathon or stuff like that, or stay accountable, stay on track towards a marathon plan, towards doing a marathon, because they have a group or some sort of accountability thing. So to stay accountable, you signed us up to something where I was kind of like, I'm not too sure what Eric wants to do on this one, so I'm going to give the how you put it being soft answer, and you went and signed us up on something.
But basically, we had a great guest last week about ice baths. She reached back out and said, "Lads, I have a great idea. Let's come down and all do the ice bath, and we'll have a good day with it." And Sean was like, "Ooh, water cold, no."
I wanted to get your opinion on it.
You gave the most wishy-washy, maybe, but definitely not kind of answer. And I was like, did he just back down from a challenge? Because it was very clearly a challenge. The gauntlet was down, get in the cold water. And you were like, oh, we'll get back to you on that. I have to see if I can get my hair done. Only I can say that now. So I just said, yeah, we'll see you mid-May. Sean's being soft. So we are going to get into an ice bath.
Because I've no other plans in mid-May, but anyway, we're going to get
mid-May is flexible. You have a big race, but how's that going?
We'll go on to the questions this week. No, see, what I did was I tried to do both right now. So I went to the National Fitness Games last weekend in Blanche IT. I was in the sports campus. Ever in the sports campus before?
Yeah,
the track and stuff. Oh my God. Like sometimes I'm like, we don't have a great setup in this country with some things, and you talk about stadiums, stuff like that. But then when I seen something like this, I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like I know they have the aquatic center and all there, but the track and all, and it really pushes you to the next level. It's kind of like I had this conversation today with one of the girls. She wants to do she was unsure about doing a 5K. I was like, I can't get faster in times, and I was like, race day you will. I was like, no, because I'm going for a 5K race day. It's the exact same as the day. I'm like, no, it's not. Like I remember knocking a minute and a half nearly off my 5K time when I went out for a proper 5K race, and I could have sworn I was stuck at 21:55 was my 5K PB. Like I could have sworn I was stuck to pretty much that, and then all of a sudden I'm getting 20:40, being like, hang on, like I know I ran as fast as I could, but when you're put in a different atmosphere like that, it really does kind of you just have that extra little push on that you just can't quite get by yourself. And it kind of goes back to the point a few minutes ago about getting yourself into different groups and different things like that, and trying to train with people like you have done in the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure if you were just training by yourself and everything else and had no track or anything else like that, you wouldn't be able to push as much.
Oh yeah, well look, it dragged me out of the depths, and like that's the reason when we talk about this 75-day hard or the 75-day Eric's version. Like if it wasn't for people around me, probably would have failed in the first 3 weeks. Do you know, there's days where I just felt smashed and I was like, no, I'm not going doing this. But I'm at that phase now. We're through day 34.5 kilos. So we're getting towards a stone in weight in a month. Do you know, like that's 1 month of training and nothing major. Now it's ramping up, and we tried to get the cycling stuff in, but at all times people were asking me about it. How's it getting on? Getting a message about it. I'm like there was one of the days I came back and it was at 11:15. We tried to go see Air Force One like a pair of clowns. And
don't include me in that way. I always love to see it.
Obviously, we were never getting next or near it. But I got back real late and I was back for ES, and I was like, I have to go running. I have to do something. So I did my yoga and I did a weight session and I got everything. I was lifting things in the car just to get a 10-minute head start. But everyone's like, well, that's not a real workout. I was like, yeah, but you know, like I prescribed myself an exercise to do. Like everything's a workout when you are actively doing it to better yourself or do something. Like I can get people to stand there and keep their arms perpendicular to themselves for 5 minutes and they'll say that was the hardest workout they've ever done. So it's all about, as long as you're pushing yourself to development and taking the right steps. But that was the first time I was like, I'm under a lot of pressure, but only for the accountability we talked about, the contracts I made. I wasn't getting sympathy from anyone. And that's what was like, oh, get this done and do it well, you know. So that's where being a group and accountability really comes in. And that's why people join gyms. That's why people join CrossFit gyms. That's why people join running clubs. There's that accountability. Like, there's days, yesterday I was in two minds. Will I go for a swim? Will I go for a run? I've got the marathon. And I happened to be on the phone with Rachel and Brandon in Australia. And she was like, oh, I'm doing a cycle on Zwift. There's about 40 people going. It starts in 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Because then I had no time to think about it. Others were going, even though it was on Zwift, we were still on a video call while cycling away. And that's where it makes the difference. You don't want to let someone down. You don't want to not show up, especially when the likes of you, when the gauntlet's down, you're like, maybe, I don't know, I'll think about it. But yeah, it made a big difference to me. Big time made a big difference to me in the early days. And now the habit's there, now the goals are there, now the weight's coming off, now the bits between the teeth, now you want to go running. That's the difference. So we'll wake up with a hangover on Sunday morning, probably still drunk, and I'll be like, come on, Sean. It's not going to run itself, Sean.
I'll pack the runners with me, so.
But that's what you need to get to. And that first 30 days, we've mentioned books before on habits. We've mentioned training habits and discipline. And really, motivation is week one. Discipline is the rest of that month. And after 30 days, it turns into lifestyle. You want to do it, you know, and it's a broad stroke statement, and it's what suits me, but it's very much true. I can feel the energy coming back. I can feel the want coming back. It's different. And now the process is far more enjoyable. Did not enjoy the process for the first 3 weeks. Definitely did not enjoy the process. And I was afraid to go on the bike. I was afraid to go do this again. And, this is going to hurt. But now it's different. Now it's, like, I stopped on my run. I felt sorry for myself in the long run when I did the 15K. I got through 7.5. I was like, I'm a bit tired and we're doing this later. I might just call it. And the other side, he obviously crawled up my back just to smack me in the head. I was like, no, you coward, you can double it now. And that's how I ended up doing 15K. So yeah. it's starting to come back. And it is that mentality starting to come back.
That what you said there at the end could be the answer to the first question already. We'll fly through this podcast. So the first question was, you put different topics of stuff in there. And Shane, thanks again for this. It really is cool when we get different messages and feedback from people either through email or on a DM. So his first one, he says, short topics to talk at any stage, like your ideas on the podcast will be, this will be stuck in the mud or heavy legs. Do you just drive through it, or any tips? We had a quick conversation this one on Sunday where sometimes, like, I can go out there, I haven't got the head for it, or I try to stick on an audible book. I know sometimes music is cheating and all the rest, and halfway through you're trying to concentrate on what's being said in the audible book, and then you're trying to keep the run stuff going. And I remember one time in particular, I was listening to the book and I just completely flatlined. I was like, well, fuck this. I can't believe I can't do 16K. I thought I was able to do this, I haven't done this in a while. You know, I just felt crap and walking back, whatever. And then 2 days later, I went out and I was like, right, good playlist, let's go. And I'm not going to say 16K was comfortable, but it was comfortable. And sometimes it is that heavy head. And I know sometimes it is the mindset where, like, the legs feel heavy. Is like, do the legs really feel heavy? Or, you know, you stick on a fly now with Rocky and next thing you know, you find that extra spring in your step and go from there. Like, there is times where the legs are feeling sore and you just need to stretch them out or something like that, but I think a lot of it is mental.
Yeah, and a lot of it I find for me in the last 5K, the marathon, and we'll say the marathon because that's what I did, when we were running through the streets and you're seeing people starting to drop, they've lost the battle. And sometimes you've no music, and so let's take music out of it. What I find, my little tip is, be aggressive with yourself. That little bit of aggression and feck you and stop being a little coward, you know, like, just get angry, and that will give you the burst, that little bit of anger with yourself to keep going and push on. One, you're distracting the brain, you're hyping yourself up, you're getting yourself going. All of a sudden the legs are not as heavy, you know, and that's what you kind of have to do. You kind of have to be your own hype man or woman, or you know, like that's what you kind of have to do when you don't have music, you know, when you don't have that. But and look, we've said it each week, the playlist makes a big difference in training. It makes, sometimes even when you don't want to go out, put on the headphones first, and the rest will take care of itself. It is a great guide to getting out there. and keeping a tempo and pushing. And I have the Giddy Up playlist. That's what I call it. So I had a podcast on when I was feeling sorry for myself as well. And I was like, nah, Giddy Up playlist. And it was a full rave for the next 7K. But it does just that. I can allow the mind to just settle then rather than trying to concentrate on books and whatever else. Some can do it. I can't. After a certain period, it has to go back to music or just pure aggression or nothing. I'd rather have nothing in my ears and let the brain wander, and I'll clip along. Yeah.
It is that repetition as well, though, when you go out for like a run on a miserable day or you've been in that situation where the legs are tired and you get through it, you can kind of recall those events. So I remember near the end of the marathon, I'm like, my legs were just in bits. I'm like, I've been here before. I've done longer distances where I could barely move my legs, and yet I somehow managed to finish. So you're breaking down. It's like, it's only 3 minutes to get to this corner, or only a little bit to get to here. You're not thinking about the last 2 mile. Like, it's not that far to get to this point, and you get this check marker and stuff, and just break it down. Because I find in that situation, and I've done it before, is I've stopped, and if I've stopped and try to go again, the legs feel worse, and it's like you just got to keep pushing at that stage in a race, and you're not going to get injured. Not you're not going to get injured, but when it really matters, it's like just get that last little push, and if you stop, it's just going to be so hard to get started and get going again.
And this is where we said, does cycling complement running? If you're worried about heavy legs, cycle for an hour, then start your run. You're going to put yourself in the latter stages of a longer run starting out. You won't have raised your heart rate too high on the bike because it's nice and easy, but the legs will have worked. And then you've got your wobbly legs for the first 500 meters, and then they're heavy. It's a shuffle after that, and then you can learn. Oh, look, this isn't so bad. I've been in this situation before when I got off the bike that time, and and that's one thing you learn. And the better you get at that, the better you overcome that mental kind of anguish of heavy legs during a run. Like, so, get them heavy before you start.
The next question. This is probably more a question towards you because you're the nutrition guy. Nutrition mid-race marathon. I've been thinking a lot over this one. What's the best to eat mid-marathon, and what stage? A lot of people swear. And at what stage? Sorry, there's a dash there. A lot of people swear by tailwind, but you carry another bottle with you, etc. Do you carry another bottle with you, etc.? Gels are good, but I find you get sick of them after 2. Any other good tips? Carrying more water seems excessive with all the water stops, etc. Just add on to that, actually, because the next part kind of leads into it. When should you take your first gel or salt tablets, or is it case by case? What would you say?
So it's person by person, and that's a very broad statement. But I even was debating whether I was going to carry my own water because I was going to put whatever I needed into it. Then I was like, it's 2 kilos. It's why when they're going to give it to me out there. So I went with salt tablets with the water that they were dishing out, and I carried gels, and I still made a balls of it. I probably took on too much salt too early, and that's when I had my weird kind of toilet break where I thought it was all over. And then the gels come 30K. I couldn't look at another one. Couldn't do it. I also tried a Mars bar, or a fake version of a Mars bar, at just through the half marathon mark, and the caramel, I was trying to churn it away. And the best advice is get the food in earlier than later. You won't have the energy to eat. Your body will start trying to shut itself down towards the end. You're going to conserve energy for everything else. You won't want to eat. That's where a quick shot of a gel towards the latter stages can be good. If you have the energy to chew your Mars bar early, chew the Mars bar earlier in the day, because it's going to take the body X amount of time to break that down, get it into the system. So you want to be thinking 20 minutes ahead of the problem. So 20, 30 minutes to get the effect of what you've just taken on. Some people use caffeine then towards the end of the race, give themselves a little boost. But again, it is person to person dependent. That might give someone else the shits. So, and that's to put it bluntly. The only way you're going to find out is write a diary. And people always like, why am I writing a diary? So you've got a long run. Say we've 6 weeks to go. So this Sunday, I'm going to use a gel, and I'm going to use a Mars bar and a granola bar, and I'm going to try all of them, because what's the worst that can happen? If I start choking, I can stop, I can spit it out. I'm going home anyway. I'm only covering a half marathon. You don't need the food over a half marathon, but what you're doing is practicing. You're practicing eating. You're practicing using your belt. How do I get it into my belt? How do I store it in my belt? I'm after storing it wrong. It's after bursting all over my t-shirt. So there's lessons to be learned in that. And what I would go into your centre or Spars or somewhere that sells the mini bottles and get used to running with the mini bottle, because that's what they're handing out at these aid stations. If they're handing out cups, forget about it. You're in hurt land either way. But if you're getting the mini bottles, see what salt tabs fit into the top. How hard are they to open on the top? To put something like a Baraka or something into the bottle. Now I'd be holding on to that bottle. Even if you still have that through the aid station, you're still getting in all this extra with a little bit of sugar in it, whatever it is, some isotonic drinks or powder mix that you have, tablets, salt tablets, whatever you can get in, and just spacing them out. Again, the body is all about balance. So people are taking, and like I did, I probably hadn't sweat enough to take the salt tablet at the point that I did. And I put my body under a little bit of pressure to process the amount of salt that was in the system. So it was a different kind of dehydration. So
when did you take salt tablet?
Oh, within the first 5K.
Oh, gee. Okay. You already got started.
Get ahead of it. And that's where it was part of my learning. But then I trained with 4 weeks for a marathon. So I didn't really, but I knew how not to get caught out. But I finished strong and never hit a wall because I ate all the way. I just probably took that too much early. But I'm a sweaty man. Like, I'd be salty looking. When you're looking at me running after 20K, you will see the white streaks on me. So I was trying to get ahead of that. But now I know 10K. There we go. That's when we're starting to get the salt in. Come through 10, 11, 12K. Replace that maybe once. And that's for me. That's a lesson I learned. Get that in early. Through 30K, don't care. It's all about recovery through 30K. Do you know, like, you can take in the things there. It might get you the little bursts for your final finish and keep you upright crossing the finish line. But once you get through that 35K mark, it's all about how good you feel after the race as opposed to what's going to get you across the line, depending on your pace, of course. But that's in a nutshell. It's you dependent. Some people might like Jaffa cakes, but how do you carry them? Some might like to bring I don't know, Chewits or something, you know, like that kind of jelly that just sits in your mouth and you can just suck on it or whatever it is for a little while. So every person's makeup is different. We can go into figures again about how many calories you should be taking in over a certain period of time. The body can only break down between 150 and 2 something, you know, like each individual, depending on the individual, their bodies can only actually process so much of it as well. And that's where the fluids is important. That's where the isotonics in the fluids is important. So even the likes of carrying a small little packet, even in cling film, whatever you can do of your, they're kind of like Baraka, but they're isotonic bombs. Essentially, you drop it into a bottle and it'll fizz up, and then you can drink away in it. That'll give you the caffeines and stuff. So it's dependent on what you're comfortable with. It's dependent on your body, how your body reacts to it. But the best bet is to get trialing. Right. Yeah, get trialing. I find jellies are always easy though. Jellies never let you down. And you can buy the really refined ones, like blocks and stuff, and it's like a gel, but it's not. Gels, I find some of them are really, really thick, and it's in your mouth, and you kind of want to be taking them with water. So I'd be putting in a bit of gel, taking loads of water, because it's kind of like you've got my waddy glue in your mouth, and it's difficult. It's tangy. It's a little bit. Whereas the jellies, you're getting the same kind of thing in, but it's a lot easier and tastier, and you can still breathe when it's in there. So, but again, it's person to person dependent.
Any preference in type of gels? I know when I did Galway, the only one I get my hand on so close was the Connecticut ones. I was like, they worked. They got me PB. So when I came to Dublin, I was like, I had to get Connecticut. So I can't say Connecticut's the best one. It was just that was one of the super at the time. I was like, it's Connecticut, yeah, dark green label. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have that. Talking to other people in Ironman, stuff like that. Tailwind or the what's the something high five.
Yeah, look, they're all doing kind of the same thing. It's like, why is a Baraka better than the tablet you get now? Like, it's as long as it's saying it has the stuff in the back, then it's down to, do you enjoy it, you know? And that's it's the same with any food. Like, it's, you know, I can cook a burger at home for $5. Will I enjoy it as much as McDonald's, you know, like, which I pay more for? Like, you're paying for a brand, you're paying for research gone into it. Part of that research is how does it taste, because people don't want to buy dog shit, essentially, you know, and how can we be different and what can we add in? So let's add in caffeine to the tropical flavor, you know, and that's going to be our different marketing point, and call ourselves specialized something, you know, like, so. But there are ones that are a little bit heavier. Like, there's one I used I'm going to butcher the name of this, but I think it is SIS or something along those lines. But it's kind of like a jam or a marmalade. It's a watery kind of marmalade where there's actually kind of little chunks in it and stuff. So it's kind of like, yeah, but you know what? It's actually okay because it feels like a meal, but it's water-based, if that makes sense, especially if you're running for a long time, because you can take on a lot more, but it would give you the same concentration as the stuff out of the decathlon. And for me, doing all these races, spending all this money, I'm going to the decathlon and I'm getting the jellies, and that's the end of that's the end of that. Unless people are going to give me a box of jellies for, I don't know, €5 what I pay in the decathlon. I don't know what the rest is, and that will cover me for 2 or 3 races. So, and I get used to using them. They've easy open packets, all of that. So, shop around, try around, and that's kind of it. And just make sure, like, look at the grams you're getting in of calories and sugar, because you're burning glucose. So, like, it's you're okay. It's the one time it's okay to be taking on board the sugar, you know.
Would you split it evenly? Because that was the other question when you take your first gel. So let's say you had 5 gels. Would you do every 8K, I suppose, would be 5K because it's 40, or would you go 6, 7K? Or do you think that one in, get that maybe that gel in early first instead of the salt tablet? Or what way would you tackle? What way are you going to tackle cork? I suppose, have you talked about that?
Yeah, so cork again. I played a mental game with food. So 5K is a great interval. So through the first 5K, I'll go with a gel because of more energy to start eating. Or sorry, a jelly of more energy to start eating. Through 10K, I'll have a gel, and then next cycle will be jelly plus salt tab, 15K. Then back into a gel, and then through the half marathon mark, try and have something more substantial. So I don't know what that is for me. It could be Milky Bar this time. It could be, I don't know, but something that's going to keep my focus for a kilometer or two. I need to eat this. I need to eat this. I need to eat this with a gel. There's usually a water stop and a Lucozade stop. So that to me is a larger refuel on the go, kind of in the head. We're halfway through, reset as much as I can to give myself the legs, but don't do it too much. Be gentle with it. And then through 30K, if I have the energy to take on a jelly, I'll do it. If I have the energy to blast in another gel through 33K, mightn't get to the 35, I'll take it on. But that's just so I don't fall in a heap on the ground. I would take a caffeine gel towards the latter stages of the race as opposed to the early stages. For gastro reasons, I don't want to tempt fate. So that would be my 30-kilometer gel. I'd be taking in something with a little bit of caffeine just to give that bit of boost.
The caveat to that is that you're not much of a coffee drinker.
No.
Yeah, so I would have more caffeine just because I'd be more of a coffee drinker. Like I've had 3-4 cups today already. I think it's actually 4. So
that's an illness.
I know when I have that 4 is a dodgy one of how I sleep tonight. Like, so I've had it early and something like sugar. I've had that 4th when I was thinking. But so that's different for different people. Next part is slow runs. Are they really that beneficial? It's mad. I was looking at the stats, the Strava things based off this question here, and it's just the people that got the 2-3 hours. You could see their volume was a lot higher than those that were 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. It's like, well, obviously because like they're faster, but it's like their volume per week was higher, consistent. Actually, a funny thing on that as well was their overall volume for those who got 2-3 hour marathon times was lower than that of what the recommended time was on like Runners World magazines. Like and it was a good like 600 or something miles compared to 700 or something miles. Like it was a good difference in the gap. Like, but you can't just go like slow runs. All right, I'm going to start doing 40, 50 miles this week, because if you do that, no matter how slow you go, you're going to break down. You're going to be a bad way. So it's good to build up towards that week 1 and then get that high mileage if you can, if your body can sustain it and you're not getting those little niggles and stuff. Yeah,
and that was the aim of this week. Or the last couple of weeks was to avoid the niggles, because eventually you do reach that level of robust, I suppose. You're a little bit flexible. You're used to doing the short little 30-minute runs and there's a niggle, right, bring it back. And now we're in the stage where we can just go at it. The long runs, people call them junk miles and call them different things, and it is called mileage in the legs. For me, it's the mileage in the legs is training the heart rate. But also, if you're not using your slow runs to focus on your foot placement, if you're not thinking about keeping from your eyebrows, forehead, shoulders relaxed, keeping your arms low, don't be tensing your arms, and use your long run and check yourself every 3 kilometers and go, oh my God, I'm doing it again. I'm leaning left. I'm doing this. I'm really tensing my shoulders, relax, reset. And the more you could do that on the day of the event, you'll get through the 3K mark and go, oh, I'm doing it again. And then it's just a case of, oh yeah, I'm relaxed now. I've been here before. And it's all adding into it. But the easy miles for race day smiles, there's so much studies in 80, 20, every kind of rule you want to talk about, but that going slow. But if you're starting to feel niggles, then it's not worth it. Then you need to be getting into the swimming pool. Then you need to be getting on the bike. But the idea is training endurance. You want to get efficient at burning fat. You want to get efficient at doing all this other things. You want to train the body. You're turning it into an athlete. So you need to be hitting that training zone. But running is important for all the bone density, all the robustness we've been speaking about. You don't get that from the swimming pool. You will get that from doing the longer runs. You will get used to that feeling.
Yeah, building up that impact, I suppose. Next one is an interesting one because I butchered this, especially on 5Ks. If you're planning to do an example 4-hour marathon, do you stick to the 4-hour pacer or go example with the 3-hour 50 pacer and have to know that you can fall back, or go with the 4:10 pacer and speed it up later? So I always jump ahead of the pacer. Sometimes it's worked and sometimes gotten ahead of myself. And there's no more sickening feeling, especially over 5K, because I've done it twice now, where you're ahead of that pacer, and at the halfway point, you just see that pace for that time you want pass you out, and it's a sickening feeling. Having said that, for the 4-hour one I wanted to do a couple of years ago, I jumped ahead from near 340 and got to 350 near the end. But that was my training plan anyway, because I knew I wasn't going to have a negative split on a marathon. Have you had experiences with pacers and doing it wrong or right, or what would you feel?
Yeah, well, the last one I knew I wanted 4-hour, and I was confident I could keep it at the 350 pace. I just didn't know if I was going to last through the last 5K, which was true. I got to the 4K to go mark, and I was starting to feel the pressure coming on, and I knew I had my 4 hours by 10 minutes, and I was 4K to go, and I was like, you know what? Rather than bursting myself here and spitting all over the place, I'm actually just going to let them drift off. So that's how I got to 352. So,
but you didn't see 350, did you? Or did you see 350 pacers or come close to 350
pacers?
They
were. I stayed in front of them. Yeah, I stayed in front of the pack. So I don't like running behind a balloon. You run behind a balloon, you're in a crowd. Don't like it. I run in front of the balloon. And right. I will always stay in front of the balloon because it's free running, a free reign of the track. I can take the shortest route. And that's my advice on it. Stick with the balloon. Every time you look over the shoulder, you'll see a crowd of 300 people chasing you. That's the position you want to be in.
Don't put extra pressure on you. You slow down once or something.
It makes you not want to get drawn into the group. Yeah, it's a nice pressure. It's like, they're there. Stay in front. Just stay in front, because that it's just carnage. There's elbows everywhere. You just want to be in front of it, and that's the idea behind it for me. But you have to assess your capabilities. There's no point if you haven't been trained. Like, even still with this Cork Marathon, I'm like, is a 4-hour possible? I won't know until the week before. I won't know until I do a 30K at a certain pace, and then I can go, yes, this is the possible time. And I reckon on the race day and the extra ego and all that, I reckon I can go out with a 5-minute or 10-minute quicker balloon. And that would be the aim of the game for me. But you have to assess your own abilities. You have to assess what is your easy run. And then you're asking yourself, well, are easy runs actually worth it? And it's like, yeah, well, what's your easy pace over 20K? Do you know, what can you hold for 20K without your heart rate coming above 150? And that should always be the reassuring factor for people wearing heart rate monitors in this. If your heart rate's pretty much in the 150 through 20K at the pace you're at, you're probably in a good place. Do you know, and then watch it rise up. And if it's still below 160 as you're coming through 30K, you're still in a very good place, you know, and you've worked hard, because the body is starting to tell you, listen, we're getting tired. And then as you come through the 38K, you start to spike into the 170s, and then you're like, hold on, just hold on. And then you've beaten your time by 10 minutes. And that's the aim, that's the game plan, or for me anyway. And that's how I like to play it. Some people will never see those results in heart rate, but that's how I played the last Dublin Marathon, and it worked to a T.
Second last question, although we've touched on a lot already. What complements running? Example, biking, swimming, or does running complement them? One thing I'll add there is strength training for me personally. The one thing we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, it's good, and it's a nice change every now and again. Like I've kind of fell off the wagon with the weights. I've gone to kind of with the different shifts. I haven't got the same gym access, so I've been doing just kind of body weight stuff where I'd have the little sandbag here, but still trying to stick to the core kind of principles of what I'm doing, single leg stuff, strength work, core work to try and strengthen the core for swimming and cycling, and running, of course. But they all complement each other, but nothing will replace pounding the pavement.
Yeah.
So you need to just get used to, and the body needs to kind of get used to that feeling again. But if you're looking, as we said, to get the heavy leg feeling and then go for a run, go for an hour cycle first. If you're carrying something, a little niggle, it's good to get in the pool, just keep swimming, relax, take the weight off, but still keep exercising. And likewise, the bike is a fantastic asset for that as well. And you can really, like, it's very hard to get your heart rate up on the bike. If you're just out for a leisurely cycle, and you could be an hour, 2 hours in the right zone, the right endurance zone, teaching the body how to burn fat and training the heart, essentially.
Last one. After a marathon, is it best to take a full week off or more? I suppose that's dependent, but the one thing I've heard is you should take a day off for every mile you race is something I've heard before.
I don't know. That's a month and a half, really, isn't it?
26 days. In terms of going hard again, that's what I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It is one of those things I've heard. Having said that, I nearly ran Galway and Dublin in 26 days. No, we're training in between. So I'm not too sure I totally agree with it, but
you were pretty tired. But
I was definitely after that when I was goose for the next event. So I
think like anything, and I think the mistakes I've made is I've worked and worked and worked. I've peaked and fell. Did nothing. That was it. And then I found it very hard to get everything back together. So I think like anything, you need to have a wean yourself off procedure. I think you need to take the day or two. That's where you get back into the pool and maybe walk up and down the pool, do lunges in the pool, but keep the body moving, keep everything moving, keep flexible. Maybe do a little bit of strength training or decompress. Don't get onto the bike. Don't go running as often. But there's nothing wrong like with a 3K. There's nothing wrong with a 5K. Just to keep yourself kind of moving again, keep everything ticking over, assess how you're feeling, and then see how you get on. Like if you're only planning on doing the one and done, then probably not necessary. But if you have a longer term training plan, like if that's the case, I'm doing Ironman in October. I do this marathon in June, and then I do nothing again until mid-July. I'm going to be under a lot of pressure.
100%, yeah.
So, like, my aim is to do the marathon and possibly get on the bike in the gym the next day for an hour and see how I'm fixed. But that's the mentality I have about what the goal is. So everything is kind of goal dependent, and then everything.
But you're not going to necessarily race Cork.
No, but I think, let's be honest, people are going the best that they can do with the fitness that they have, no matter what. I'm not going to show up to go, I'm going to come around this in 6 hours. I don't want to embarrass myself, or I've set a standard of myself of never be over 4 hours again. And that's something I'm refusing to give up on. And how prepped I am for that decides how hard of a day I'm going to have. But some people are always going for their PB, and it's doing, it is okay, you can say it's a little bit different, but we both just ran 42k. So you might have put your heart rate into different zones for a slightly longer period of time, but let's say you take the stats and you look it down and you go, well, you're actually in zone 4 for 40 minutes. Sure, I did that on Wednesday. It's relative. I do agree there's rest required. I do agree you have to recover. If you don't recover, you will not be able to continue to train. You won't be as efficient, but you have to be realistic with that. And what that is for different people, it's going to be varied. For me, it'll be take it nice and easy for a week, but the legs will be spinning. I'll be swimming. It mightn't be big miles. It mightn't be push. It might just be that 80 category, that easy stuff, nice and easy for a week. And then we're looking at big stuff, because 6 weeks out from the Ironman, we're going to do one of the hardest half Ironman that's not an Ironman, I suppose, the Lost Sheep, the half distance triathlon. So, and I'll couple that with a hard training week. So the end of my training week will be that. And then it's 6 weeks to a full Ironman. So, but there will be a wean off period and a tapering period between that. So yeah, there's a lot of information there, but I think people need to kind of assess what their goals are, but definitely don't do what I did. I've done it 3 years and I just fell off the wagon as soon as I've completed that marathon, and it's always the wrong choice. I'm always kicking myself come January 1st.
I suppose that wrapped up Shane's questions. Shane, thanks a million for sending those topics. Guys, through an episode of the podcast. But hopefully we'll have guests on the podcast the next couple of weeks, which give me time to ask you now, Eric. You are roughly halfway through your 75-day challenge. I suppose, how has it gone, and would you have changed anything in this 75-day challenge because you, for people that listen to the earlier podcast, you set it up and you saw something online, this TikTok 75-day challenge. You hated the idea, but it's like, actually, if you just tweak this, and this, you can make this something sustainable towards your goals, which is obviously your main goal is the Ironman in October you talked about there. Is there something you're like, I'm now actually going through this challenge, I should have added this, taken away this, put too much emphasis on this, too little emphasis on this, or do you feel like it's gone well so far and you're bang on track where you need to be?
Yeah, so I think in terms of, but it depends on the person again. For me, it was the kick in the arse I needed for the first month.
Yeah.
After that, 75-day challenge is not hard. Because we tried to start back cycling to work this week and got 2 punctures, and we now have 2 new tires, and so a lot went on with the plan this week. But if I start cycling in and out to work every day, there's a 75-day challenge done Monday to Friday without thinking about it. But I'm also going to be training in the evenings. But I wouldn't have got here without the kick in the arse for the first 30 days, without stop eating all the sweets because they're just in the house, have a little bit of discipline, have your little dessert on the weekend, because it says a diet, and a diet is disciplined food intake and appropriate food intake and cutting out the processed. And that's what we have been doing. So it was a very big kick for that, because the biscuit spoke to me for the first 2 weeks, and then it became easier to say no. And that's where it was a real challenge. But if I was to change anything, the reading 10 pages was really hard. I'm not going to lie.
And it sounds like the easiest, but I do get where you're coming from in that.
The reading the 10 pages is so hard, because I had a book and it was really interesting. But after 3 pages, after doing all, getting back into training, falling asleep. I had to stand out of bed to finish reading 10 pages. So what I've altered it to do is audiobooks. So there's time on the bike, or there's time where I can actually be multitasking. So the idea is to be efficient, because people are busy. People are busy lives, kids, everything. And each of these items takes time. So trying to mishmash a lot of them in together, like newspaper article, there's 10 minutes. It's something that's in the news. You're learning about society or this, that, and the other. For me, it's audiobooks about start your own business, entrepreneurial, this, that, and the other. And that's where I've kind of moved into. Just the 10 pages it actually wasn't benefit me, because I'd wake up the next morning, I was like, I've no idea what I just read. I just fought sleep for 40 minutes. Where you should be getting into bed, and if you're that tired, just gone, and that's good rest. So but that's what I would do. I'd extend it, and I have extended it to audiobooks, because it's still personal development. And yeah, it's manageable. And again, but that's me. I've been here before, so I knew I just needed something to get me through the 30 days. And then when I start cycling in out to work, the volume is just going to super exceed any other 75-day hard or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, in terms of lifestyle, to get back to your question, I could envisage a staged 75-day hard, and encouraging 75-day hard. So for the first 10 days, it's X hard. For the next 20 days, it increases a bunch. And then you want to work your way up to a level where you increase fitness, but each goal is attainable. And then I think it's a very, very, very realistic, fantastic way of people to develop themselves, their fitness, and develop good habits. But yeah, there was a couple of times even trying to get that 30 minutes twice a day, I was like, oh, this is bad, but had to get it done. But had it been the 45 as the 75 day hard is, it would have failed. Would have failed in the first 2 weeks. Absolutely, yeah. And that's no problem admitting it, but that's why I changed it. You have to be realistic. You have to be realistic. But now in the next few weeks, 45 minutes, that's not even getting me to work. So, and then you have to swim and run as well in between these two cycles in and out of my commute. So, you know, like the 75 day challenge is going to get very easy for me next week, to be honest.
Fair enough. But we'll see how easy it's going to be in 4 or 5 weeks' time. When you're 5-6 weeks' time, I can't even remember now how long it is to we're down in Cork for the June Bank Holiday weekend for that. So looking forward to that. Dane, thanks for the questions. Anyone listening in does have questions, feel free to hit us up on the Instagram page at Any Given Monday Official. That is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast with myself and Eric. Take care.
Bye.